Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
A little bit of road trip inspiring music there from Joe and Woody and the boys of the Road Crew. Roadcrew66.com. If you need a theme song for your adventure or some inspiration for a road trip odyssey, check out roadcrew66.com. Hey, today we are going to be talking about some road trip inspiration. We're headed for Tulsa. Well, not quite today, but I will be heading for Tulsa soon, June 21st. We've got Wade Bray with us with the AAA Route 66 Road Fest this morning. Mr. Wade, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jim. Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, God, it's always a pleasure to talk. Always a pleasure. I know we haven't had a chance to do that much lately because, well, I get a feeling you've been busier than a one-legged man in a beehive kicking contest.
I've been a little bit busy. Actually, I'm talking to you this morning from Muskogee, Oklahoma. For the Merle Haggard fans out there, it is, in fact, that Muskogee, Oklahoma. I am taking part in a Renaissance festival. So as soon as we get off this podcast today, I'm going to be stepping into the year 1569 and playing the role of the town crier for the village of Castleton. So that's been keeping me busy for the past couple of months. So
God bless. You do find things that you never get bored, do you?
Well, when you're a history nerd, there's always something to do, So
Oh, God, yes. Becomes an affliction or an addiction.
that is so true.
So I won't I'm glad. Thank you for taking time this morning to do this. I tell you, last year was the first year that I attended Route 66 Road Fest, and I got to tell you, I was damned impressed. That I know it's a team effort, and I know that you've got people to help you with that. But my gosh, that is an event that needs to be not just on a Route 66 enthusiast bucket list, but that's an event. Anybody who has a passion for road trip and road trip history, that's an event they need to participate in.
Well, I sure appreciate that, and you're right. I do have there is a cast of many that have helped make it what it is, and it was definitely a passion project for me when AAA approached SRO Productions, the company that I work with, back in the fall of 2019. They had the idea of wanting to do something to celebrate the upcoming centennial, and so we went away from that initial meeting and said, okay, what's the right way to do this? And so, there were some obvious elements. You got to have a car show because there's no way to separate classic cars from Route 66. And we wanted to have vendors there because obviously, one of the great things about the route in its heyday and, still today is that there are a lot of independently owned businesses along the way, whether that's a diner or a bookstore or, a trinket shop or, whatever that is, that have the flair, the personal connection to the people that visit there, and they're mom and pop shops, and so we wanted to make sure we had a lot of vendors there for people to come and visit to kind of get that bit of flavor. But of course, the thing that I am the most connected with, because it's the thing that I put together, is the journey, which is our journey through time and through the history of the route. And so, once I started digging into all of the books that I could put my hands on, a few of which might have had your name on them on the spine somewhere, I really started to kind of get that feel. And I'd been up and down the route in my lifetime. I mean, to be totally honest, and we've talked about this before, I was not a Route 66 aficionado at all before I started this project. I mean, I was always very aware because I was born and raised in Tulsa, and the route is such a part of Tulsa's DNA. And I've got family in Chicago, so I've made many, many trips from Tulsa to Chicago and driven along the route and seen things. So when I started doing the research, there were things that were familiar to me, like, oh, I have seen that, but it didn't have the same context. And so, since that time, I've been out to visit you. I've been out to Needles where we met the first time. And so I've pretty much done the entire route at this point, except I still have Needles to Santa Monica to go. And so I feel like next year would be the appropriate time to finish that off. But yes, as you said in the intro, the whole point of Roadfest, I mean, obviously we want people to come and have a great time and do some history and do some activities with the kids and visit vendors and look at great cars. But really, it's supposed to be an inspiration to people to get in their car and actually get out on the route and see some of these things for themselves.
Well, Tulsa, Pontiac, Illinois, they really did a great job. They are doing a great job. They're the poster child, really, for harnessing the Route 66 tourism as a catalyst for development. But I'll tell you, Tulsa has become the poster child for how the big city can do this. And the Roadfest it's a perfect intro to what Tulsa is doing to capitalize on their association with this old highway.
Well, we've been very fortunate. I mean, like I said, the route has been part of Tulsa's DNA always. But in the last, 15 years, there have been people really stepping into the breach and kind of taking charge. And Mary Beth Babcock, who started with Buck Adams and has expanded into a bed and breakfast right behind Buck's, and then expanded into another. I mean, she's now got 3 Route 66 giants standing on 11th Street, which is the route, and there's a 4th one coming anytime now. And Mary Beth has really been a champion from a business owner perspective in Tulsa. And we also are incredibly fortunate to have the support of Visit Tulsa and the Tulsa Chamber, who are instrumental in helping us do the things that we're trying to do and keeping this festival moving forward. And then we also have been very fortunate to have the support of Matt Pinnell, who is the Lieutenant Governor of Oklahoma, and he's been a champion for our event and for the route and for the commerce and everything that comes along with that. So we are very lucky. I don't know that we could have done what we've done in another setting. Having all that support is what we really need to be able to thrive. So we appreciate all of those people and Reese Martin and Ken Busby and all the people that, have contributed in so many ways. Yourself, Joe Sonderman, Michael Wallace, who wrote the books and have been generous enough with their time to talk to me and help me get the words on the wall. And, it's just, again, it takes a lot of people to put something like this on. And I really do hope that, it's a benefit to 8 states. This is a project that originated in Tulsa, but it's not a Tulsa project. It's a Route 66 project. So,
well, exactly. Like Michael Wallace, he once said that Route 66 was a linear community. And to take that a step further, it's America's longest small town. And it's the Road Fest is a great microcosm of that linear community. And as a bonus, folks, it's all indoors and air conditioned.
That is a huge bonus. June in Oklahoma can be a little, we'll just say warm, toasty.
Last year I had to laugh. I spent my younger days. I spent a lot of time in the humid country of Tennessee and Mississippi Delta and other places. But I've been a dry roasted nut out here in the desert for so long. And I spent the day there at Roadfest, and I walked outside, and my glasses fogged up. And I had to laugh because I have that's summer in Tulsa.
Yeah, Visit Tulsa will be throwing darts at a dartboard with my picture on it for saying this, but we have the best of all worlds. We have extreme heat and humidity. So, where you live out in the desert where you have extreme heat, but it's nice and dry. And then, like you said, down in the southeast, it's super humid, but doesn't usually get out of the 80s. In Tulsa, in June, it is very warm and very sweaty. So it's a really good time to come inside and see the history of the route.
I was so impressed last year. You had an incredible slate of speakers. Michael Wallace, Joe Sonderman, And you had these incredible interactive exhibits chronicling the different periods of the Route 66 history, miniature golf for the kids, vintage travel trailers, cars. Uh, I don't know. I can't really think of much that you didn't have.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the presentation stage, and one of the names that you left off of that list was some Hinkley guy that we love having in to talk about things, and we're very happy to have that guy back this year to talk about some stuff. But yeah, we've actually really expanded the presentation stage this year. It's one of the things that I'm really excited about for the 2025 edition. We're doing more presentations than we have done in the past. And in between our conversations, we're also doing some live music for the first time since the first year. And so we're really excited about that. And like you said, we will have Michael Wallace. We're always fortunate to have him. He's a Tulsan, so it's great to have him there and available. But we've got yourself. We have Joe Sonderman. We have Jim Ross and Shelley Graham coming this year to talk about their book, Route 66, The First 100 Years. We've got Richard Rawlings from Gas Monkey Garage coming to talk about car culture. And we're doing we've got Joe Sonderman back, of course, which we love Joe. But we're also really excited this year where we have a character named Joey Medea who is coming, and he does Chautauqua presentations. And so he is a scholar actor, and he will be there appearing as Cyrus Avery. And so he will do a presentation that he's put together as Cyrus Avery, take some questions as Cyrus Avery, and then he'll take a few questions as Joey. But that we're really excited about that. This will be the debut of this character in this show. So we're really excited about that. And we're going to do a panel as well with some of the chamber people from Claremore, Sapulpa, and Tulsa, also to talk about preparations for the centennial. And and like I said, live music for the first time since 2022. We've got a lot of really talented performers, including the Red Dirt Rangers, that are going to be performing there in between the presentations. So really, I'm always excited about the presentation stage because, again, I'm a history nerd. I love hearing that stuff, and I am fortunate enough to share the stage with some of you guys and be a part of that. But this year, I think we're taking that up another level with the live music and the expanded schedule. So.
Yeah, very good. Jim Ross and Shelley Graham, they're going to be, this is going to be the kickoff for their new book. This is where they're going to introduce the Route 66, The First 100 Years. And Jim Ross and Shelley are both pioneers in the Route 66 Renaissance movement. And their contributions have been long and lengthy. So I am excited to see them there. It's always great to see Michael Wallace and Joe Sonderman. Joe can spin a good yarn, and Michael is, well, he's storyteller we all dream of becoming when we grow up. He's good.
Yeah, he's the guy, and you're right about Joe. Like, I have the best time with him. Like, back when I started on this journey, I drove up to St. Louis, and I was like, well, where do you want to meet up? I figured we'd meet at a restaurant or a coffee shop or something. And he's like, come over to the house. So I went over to his house, and we sat in the basement for a very long time, and we talked about all kinds of things. And I just love that guy. We have a lot of fun, and that's one of the things that I really like the most about what we do with the presentation stage is, I mean, it's not a lecture, it's a conversation. And I love the kind of the natural flow of that. And Ken Busby helps, obviously he and I trade off doing moderation on those things. And I just like the feel of it. I always prefer a conversation. That's why I love doing this podcast with you. I love the feel of just a natural conversation and a lot less of the bullet point, talking point presentation style, and so we have a good time up there.
Yeah, we do. And I'm really looking forward to a return trip. Hopefully the plan is for my wife to join me this year.
Oh, good.
And she always, she's definitely my better half. And I think she's going to enjoy this very, very much. I'm so excited about this, and I imagine you've got really big plans for even next year. It's going to be even. I don't know how you would improve on this for next year, to be honest.
Well, we just keep trying to expand and do different things. Even this year, we've already kind of started the process of enhancing and updating some of the features that we have in the journey. We've made a few modifications to our Phillips gas station in the 1920s exhibit. Our diner that lives in the 1940s, which is one of the most popular things that we have in the entire Road Fest. People love going in the diner and talking to our waitress and taking pictures, but we're giving our diner a complete facelift. So that's going to be a new fun thing. And another thing that I'm really excited about is, part of making this historical journey interactive and immersive. We have actors that we call our guides that live inside of each one of those exhibits. So there's 2 actors playing characters from the time period in each one of our exhibits, and we're bringing in a new crew of people this year that really specialize in that one-on-one interactive kind of experience, and I think that that's going to really enhance it this year as well. So, we're always trying to find things to add, tweaking things. We do surveys that we, really hope people do after they attend, and we like to hear what do they want to see, what will make it a better experience for them, because that's what it's all about. And so, yes, for next year, I definitely have some things in mind, and we'll see what the surveys tell us, and we just keep trying to make it better. We want people to be able to come back each year and see something different, so they feel like they're always getting their money's worth and hopefully a little bit more.
I was one of the things that really impressed me with this too is you didn't shy away from uncomfortable parts of the Route 66 story. The exhibit on the Green Book, the Green Book for Negro Motorists, I was very impressed with that exhibit, and I know that it shouldn't be controversial. I understand why it is, but I'm really glad you did not shy away from that, because I've always felt that you can't put together a jigsaw puzzle and pick out all the blue pieces because you don't like blue.
Exactly.
You can't get a good picture. You can't get a clear story.
Well,
And
in that initial conversation with AAA, when we came back and pitched the concept, we'd like to do a car show, an activity area for the kids and the vendors, and we want to do this historical exhibit. One of the things that I said was, I really want to tell this story, but I have to tell the whole story. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, not, the idea of the America of the Route 66 heyday is a very bright, shiny one, and for good reason. There's a lot of bright, shiny things to talk about, but it wasn't always bright and shiny for everyone, and I have to be able to tell that story as well. And very much to AAA's credit, they never shied away from that. They said, absolutely, do what you feel like is right. And so I do think that, it's like you said, it's not the most pleasant part of our history, but it's important to acknowledge it and to understand it and to know what happened, because, if you don't know history, you are doomed to repeat it. And that's something that we really need to keep in mind and try very hard not to do. And the actor that I have in the 1950s exhibit this year, that is kind of our Green Book traveler, I'm incredibly excited to have him doing the show this year. I've been trying to get him in the show since 2022, and it's never worked out from a scheduling perspective, because in the past years, Roadfest has conflicted with Juneteenth, and he is very involved in that in Tulsa. And so this year, for the first time, we actually have a crack in that schedule so that he's able to be there. And Fatoti is a powerhouse. This guy is amazing. He's a spoken word artist as well as a very knowledgeable history person, and a great actor. So he's one of the things I'm most excited about this year's journey. So.
oh, excellent, excellent. Hey, something that popped into my head, and you may have already thought of this, but for 26, uh, Native American connection to Route 66. That's a chapter that it's starting. The light's starting to shine on, but that's a chapter in the road's history that hasn't been really examined very much.
Absolutely. Obviously in Oklahoma, the native culture is a huge thing. We have the five, air quote, civilized tribes. I hate that terminology, but that is what they are known as. But also, out in your neck of the woods, the Native American experience working in the munitions plant during World War II, right off of the route. And there's a lot of stories to be told there. And we have been talking to some people in the state, and we are hoping to have something. That's one of those things that we've not addressed very directly yet, and we would absolutely love to do that. So I'm hoping, and that's actually something that you and I will be talking about off air, because, like I said, I think one of the more intriguing elements of that, and again, maybe not the most pleasant, but is that interaction where the Native American population that were working in those munition plants. Something I'd like to flesh out a little bit, and that's going to be something that I may ask you to help me track down out in your neck of the woods there. So,
Well, I just was speaking at the New Mexico Governor's Conference on Hospitality and Tourism, and I had a brief meeting, private meeting with the director of tourism for the the Navajo Nation, and they're very interested in getting involved with Route 66. And that's such a big part of this. I was trying to think of the name. I cannot remember, but there's so many connections with uh, Route 66 and Native Americans. There's a motel. It's pretty rough shape. The city's wanting to restore it in Flagstaff. But the fellow who established that, his parents were Navajo missionaries.
oh wow,
And he grew up speaking Navajo, grew up with the Navajo people. And when the war started, he had this idea. We had experimented with this during World War I using Native Americans as code talkers. And he went and pitched the idea to the United States government and was kind of instrumental for getting the Navajo code talker program off the ground.
oh, that's a great story. I'd love to get. Yeah, we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
There's a meeting that I'm going to ask if you can set up for me.
And all along the road, Oklahoma, we forget about the Osage Trail in Missouri, which became part of the Route 66 corridor, and
Sure.
the Hopis, the Navajo, silversmithing, an enterprising motel owner in Albuquerque set up an on-site silversmithing shop where tourists could come and watch and see them at work and buy materials. And then, of course, we had the dark side of this, too, where we were putting up roadside attractions with billboards that said, "Stop, see, live Indian."
Right.
Yeah, that's another story for another day. Wade, this is going to be really an amazing event. How many the car show, it's kind of, surprisingly, it's limited, but it's still huge. How many cars can you squeeze in for this thing?
Yeah, this year it's looking like we will have about 200 cars in the car show. I'm doing air quotes that you can't see right now because this is a podcast. The car show element, which is in the downstairs level of the expo building. So those are cars that are entered and judged. So there'll be 200 down there, and then we've got 2 cars in each one of our exhibits, and then we also have cars spread out and around in open area that are just cars of interest. This year, we are very fortunate to have a couple of really unique cars from Daryl Starbird that are going to be there. And we also have 2 cars from Tito Jackson's collection that are going to be there. And so if you are a car enthusiast, it is definitely, again, in the air conditioning, it's a great show for that. So we will probably be getting close to that, I don't know, between 225 and 250 cars probably all told by the time we get everything in there. So it's definitely a classic car lover's paradise.
And, there again, you don't shy away from anything. You had a nice display of electric vehicles last time.
Yeah, we have a section there in the show called The Future of Mobility, and that is kind of talking about what is happening next. I mean, obviously the road is the story, and what's on the road is one of those things you cannot separate. And so not only electric, but this year we also have a company that's going to come and have an exhibit up about hydrogen powered situation. And so they kind of specialize, they do a lot of generator work, but they also do powering for fleets. And so they're going to have a vehicle there as well and some information about that. It's fascinating. I mean, I was very fortunate a few years ago to go to the World Creativity Forum in Europe, and I was in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, and the university there is a leading technology hub, and they had an entire department that specialized in the development of solar powered cars. And so I saw some things there that I would never have dreamed were possible. So I think talking about the future of how we're going to get around is fascinating, and so we love to be able to present that information as well.
Well, that's an exciting thing. Now, I'm most comfortable in the world of Model A Ford technology, but that doesn't mean I'm not fascinated by things. I just drove when I went to Albuquerque for the conference. The rental company didn't have the car, so they upgraded me. I ended up with a brand new BMW.
Oh wow!
And that is so far removed from almost anything that I own or drive as far as the space age technology.
A little different from your Jeep?
Yes, just a tad bit. And for my 51 Chevy, it's a little bit of a evolutionary change there. So yeah, that hydrogen power, that'll be another exciting chapter for Road Fest.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, really the whole idea is, it's one of those things where we want people to be able to come and learn some things and have fun doing it, and that's really kind of the, again, as a history guy and, knowing full well, even my own experience. I mean, until I reached the college level, most of my history classes were taught by a coach, that had to teach the class in order to be able to coach whatever he coached. And so, and not to disparage coaches, I am one myself, but, it did not necessarily lead to the highest quality, most in-depth teaching as far as history goes. And anything that I personally can do to share my love of history and the fact that it's not about memorizing names and dates and places, but it's about human beings and what they went through, why they went through it, how they responded. I mean, even in the worst of history, there is always something positive to be seen, whether it's, a lot, the route you mentioned, the Green Book earlier. Like, one of the things that fascinates me about that is obviously the unfortunate part of that we all know very well. But one of the things that really popped out to me as I dug deeper into that subject is the level of entrepreneurship that was born from that, in the African American community, especially in the female African American community, where they opened up their homes to travelers. They, did what we would now, consider like a bed and breakfast type situation. But then some of those turned into diners and hotels. And so, even through unfortunate circumstance, a lot of times it brings out the best in people. And really, I love for people to kind of focus on that element of it as well. Learn the negative part, but also really embrace the positive that came from that and see what's possible out of something tragic. So,
well, Route 66, billed as the main street of America, and that means exactly what you're talking about. The Black experience, the Green Book itself, Victor Green, he saw a need, he fulfilled it, became a great business model. Alberta Ellis there in Springfield, Missouri, she got her whole family involved and ended up taking over the old city hospital just off Route 66 and turned it into a full-fledged resort for African-American travelers. Harlem Globetrotters, Nat King Cole.
Yeah, it's inspiring. And like you mentioned Victor Green, but his wife, after Victor passed away, his wife kept that publication going. And yeah, it is inspiring. And like I said, I think that, again, to try to bring, the history from the two-dimensional level to the three-dimensional level where it's got some real depth and some real human quality to it. That's what I love doing and what I think is so important. And I hope that, in the way that we are presenting the history at Road Fest. I hope that that's what people get from that is, I have heard people make comments that, I'm not usually really that interested in history, but this was really cool. There's nothing more gratifying or something, anything I'd like to hear
No.
more than that, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, history in high school is and college even, but it's taught as dead and dry as a 3-day insurance seminar, and it's not. And just like Route 66 itself, it's the people, it's the stories of the people. That's where the inspiration is. That's where you find that it's not stagnant. History is relevant. It's alive. And Road Fest really exemplifies that. It's immersive. One of the things I really liked about Road Fest that really impressed me was the families. I saw grandfathers with their son and his family, small children, interacting with exhibits. Grandpa talking about a car, the kids listening. It was a family activity that brought history to life and continuity to the family experience.
Absolutely. And I love that so much. I mean, when I was putting the journey together, the way that I tried to think of it was, unfortunately, my grandmother had passed long before I worked on this project, but in my mind, I tried to think of it as if I were going to walk through this with my grandmother, my mother, and my children, what do I need to incorporate into this to make sure that they each have something to, find interest in or grab a hold of? And so that was really my plan. And like you said, it's amazing to watch these multi-generational groups come through, and you've got, the older set that have actual life experience on the route during the time that we're illustrating, so they can point to something and say, hey, your grandmother and I stayed in that hotel, or we did our honeymoon there, or whatever. But what I really love too is seeing the younger kids actually interested in those old cars that are totally analog, like they spend so much time with screens in front of them. And like you were talking about the rental car that you got recently, most of the cars that you get in now have screens in them that are bigger than some of the TVs I owned in my early life, and so I love to see these young kids like peering into these, in some cases 100+ year old cars, at all of this analog stuff where there's knobs and levers and and it's so they actually find interest in that, and I find that really encouraging. It was surprising to me, but in a really positive way.
I was just reading there, the museum out in Sapulpa along Route 66. A few years ago, they started offering rides along a section of Route 66 in a mid 1920s Packard. And now I understand that they're following in the footsteps of the Gilmore Museum in Kalamazoo, Michigan, by offering Model T driving lessons.
Yes.
And when the Gilmore did this, I was really pleasantly surprised that one of the primary demographics that was of interest was 16 to 35-year-olds. Were interested in learning to drive a Model T Ford.
I mean, it's such a foreign, honestly, like, I think the number of people, the number of percentage of drivers today that can even drive a stick shift of any kind would be a very small percentage. And so when you take that and magnify it, 25 fold to what is entailed in driving something of that kind, it's really cool. I mean, and I love what the museum is doing in both of those cases. I think it's one of those things that, is such a part of what I am hoping to continue doing in the future, which is to present history and these experiences in a truly hands-on way, where it's no longer the museum of look, don't touch, but it's like get in, get dirty, get your hands on it, see what it was really like. I think that's the future of historical presentation, and that's something that I hope to be doing a whole lot more of. So.
Well, you did an excellent job creating the Angel Delgadillo exhibit, interactive exhibit here at the Powerhouse Visitor Center in Kingman.
Well,
I'll tell you, we've got the static museum is it's dead. It's gone. The generation coming up is they're hands-on people. They've had phones, screens, video games. They want things they can interact with. the automobile driving museum in El Segundo, California, that's exactly what they did. They realized that this do not touch. That's why young people are not interested in old cars they can't touch. So they started an experience where they got young people to come in and help take care of the cars. And then on Sunday, you can buy an extra ticket and they take you for a ride. It might be a DeLorean, an AMC Pacer, a 1905 Cadillac, but you get to interact. You get to actually see these things as more than a coffee table.
Right. I love that, and it always makes me cringe slightly when when we talk about you can take a ride in a vintage car, and it's a car that I either owned or saw in my high school parking lot. But I guess that is the nature of getting older, right?
It is. And I'll tell you, that's another thing at Road Fest last year. I love to just listen to people. I listen to their reactions to things. And you had some younger folks, I would guess mid 20s, just oohing and awing over a Pacer last year. And I had to laugh. I was working in the garage when those cars were a year or two old. Yes, that's this is one of those milestones of life. The display of cars, and the travel trailers and motorhomes you had on display last year. That was truly fascinating.
I have to say, our vintage RV park is one of the most popular aspects that we have in the building, and it blows me away that before we ever did our first event, I was invited. It just popped into my head. I was sitting in traffic one day, and there was an Airstream sitting there, and I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh, we should probably have a few of those in there." And so I did a little bit of research and truly stumbled across a group on Facebook. And I reached out and said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing, and I'd maybe like to have 3 or 4 of these things there. I think people might find it interesting." And they said, "Well, hey, we're doing an event in Arkansas." Was it Arkansas? No, it was near Branson. It was actually in Missouri. So anyway, it was you should come up. And I was like, okay, fine. So I drove over, really not knowing what to expect, honestly, and I was absolutely blown away by the variety of them, the condition of them. And I know nothing about that world. And to be honest, I'm not even a car guy. Like I'm an artist, I'm a designer. And so when I look at things, I look at the lines of them, and that's why an Airstream is intriguing to me, because it has that mid-century style, design style. And I find that interesting, and it's the same with the cars. So when I went to this thing, there were these funky looking trailers that had crazy design styles. And I was like, this is amazing. So I invited them to come. And the first year we probably had, I would say 8 to 10. And people went nuts over it. And part of it, obviously there's the part of it is the trailer. The trailers are cool and they definitely are a step back in time but the owners of these trailers are fantastic. And when we talk about the people in history, these people love these trailers. They take immaculate care of them, but they love to tell stories. And that is, again, what makes it human, what engages people. And so now last year we were up to, about 20. And this year we may even expand it more, because the people in that community want to come. And I honestly will put as many of them in there as want to be there, because people love it. We had one last year that was a 2-story one. I didn't even know that existed,
Yes.
So yeah, it's amazing. I love those things.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. That's a whole nother chapter of the road trip story. In fact, the founder, Wally Byam of that established Airstream, I believe that's correct.
Uh-huh.
Fascinating fella. Going back to starting building trailers in the teens that were similar to what he had used in a sheep camp, being pulled by mules, and then selling the plans and going from there. We got a couple great, and another Route 66 connection to this. Tin Can Alley just opened on Route 66 here in Kingman, is an Airbnb community. And Tim and Lenore had a great vision. They gathered vintage Airstream trailers, some that had been custom built for use by railroad employees in the 50s and 60s. They were pretty decrepit motorhomes, trailers. They redid the outsides, but totally updated the interiors to be modern. And
Huh.
it created this experience along the road. And then Vicky Ashcraft at the Enchanted Trails Trading Post, an RV park near Albuquerque along Route 66, she's got a fantastic display of vintage travel trailers with Hudson automobiles. So if you're heading west to Road Fest, you can whet your appetite for travel trailers along the way.
That's really cool. That may be my maybe where I stay the next time I'm in Kingman.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. They've done a tremendous job. Wade, this is going to be this is quite an event, and I sure want to encourage people. You don't have to be a Route 66 enthusiast, a car enthusiast. Uh, you just got to be an enthusiast for life. That's really what it boils down to. If you want to enjoy Road Fest, if you just got to have an enthusiasm for life and curiosity, because you will find so many interesting things there. And not to mention all the displays from the different Route 66 associations, the chambers of commerce, tourism offices, businesses along Route 66. Everything you need for planning a road trip.
Absolutely. We put all of those people that you just mentioned right in the middle of the journey, and we call that our Route 66 community area. And one of the things that we set out to do from the very beginning of this project is, I reached out to all of the associations and all of the travel and tourism and the city chambers and even attractions, that had people I could reach out to and said, look, this is about you. The goal here is to make people interested enough to get in their car and come to you. And, to try to help achieve that, we give them those booths. Those are all comped booths, and we want them to come and set up and try to, we're trying to inspire people to come spend money in their town or in their shop. And so we're so happy to have them there and so fortunate to have such a great participation. Nikki comes from Arizona. We've got people from California that come. It's like we really we've had, I think, 7 out of the 8 states represented either by a historic association, a town, a state travel and tourism, or some combination of the above. And so we love that because, again, that is truly why we're doing this. I mean, AAA is the one who fit the bill for creating this thing and for producing it every year. We're so grateful for that. And obviously they're in the people in cars business. And so it's always been about trying to get people. I could put together a really pretty display to look at, but there is no substitute for standing in Angel's shop, or going to, the new center there in Illinois, or, it's just, or going to, Ted Drew's and getting some custard. There is no substitute for the real thing. And so that's what we hope to inspire by this.
Well, Road Fest is the gateway drug for the Route 66 and road trip experience.
I like that.
It's the gateway drug for the road trip and just the road trip experience in general. This is a place to get your feet wet, inspire a new generation. Another thing that surprised me, you've got to be an old timer, like at least my age or older, to have any real association with Route 66 when it was a highway. And I'm surprised. Reese Martin, Sam, his wife, so many of the younger generation that are passionate about this road, and that is made manifest as well here at Road Fest.
Yeah, I think so. And, I think there are people that, like I said, people find ways to relate to things. I'm not a car guy. You can tell me what size engine you have in a car, and it absolutely goes straight over my head. But I look at a 1920s automobile, and what goes through my mind is this car was driving around Chicago when Capone was running it, or this is the kind of car that, Bonnie and Clyde were trying to outrun the police in, or, I have my own touch points for that. Yeah. And I think that you do have people, and Reese and Sam are the best example I can think of people that they just love Route 66. They connect to it in a way that most people don't. And, you know, Ken Busby, there's all these people bring a passion to this that's what sells it. You know, I mean, that's why we want them, people like yourself and Joe and Michael. That's why we want you on that presentation stage, because nothing sells anything better than passion. If you can watch someone that is that passionate about a subject, it makes you a little bit interested. And I think that, you know, doing that job is step one, getting them in their car and driving out. And it's easy. You know, if you live in Tulsa, you don't have to drive 500 miles to experience it. You can go see the blue whale. You know, you're not that far away. You can, if you're in Oklahoma City, you can drive to the Clinton Museum. That's a great museum, you know, and out in your neck of the woods, you know, I would encourage people to go to the angel exhibit. I might be kind of biased about that, but I think you should go check it out, you know, at the Powerhouse. So, you know, it's one of those things where it can be a series of weekend trips. It doesn't have to be take 2 weeks off of work and drive from Chicago to Santa Monica. You can do it in bite-sized pieces. And I think that's one of the things that's great about it.
Well, exactly. And you mentioned the old car aspect. You know, as much, you know, I appreciate a good street rod, the work that goes into it, but they just really don't appeal to me at all. But if you want a real time, the closest I think we can ever get to time travel is get yourself a vintage car, say something in the 1980s.
You're killing me, Jim. You're absolutely killing me right now.
But get yourself a vintage car and drive Route 66 in stock configuration. And that's as close to time travel as you're going to get.
And that is really the focus. You know, obviously down in our car show, in the big car show, you know, there may be some, you know, more tricked out cars or, you know, kind of your rat rod type of thing. But, you know, upstairs in the exhibits, we really go for complete authenticity. They are not greatly modified, restored, but not modified, because again, I think that is part of the story. Is I want you to be able to, and, you know, one of the things that I'm really proud of, and this is a huge testament to the car collectors that are gracious enough to let us use their vehicles for our exhibits. We don't put stanchions up. You know, you can walk right up, you can stick your head in the window of the car and see what it looks like and what it feels like. And I think that is one of the most, you know, along with what the actors bring to it and our soundscaping, I think that's one of the things that kind of transcends that writing on the wall stuff. It is, you can stick your head inside that car while you're listening to FDR speak overhead, and you really do get that sense of, you know, what it was like to be in that time period. And again, like you said, the closest thing you can get to time travel, that's what we're after. We want people, when they're inside that exhibit, to feel like they are in that moment in time somewhere along the route. And so, you know, I hope that we achieve that.
Yeah, you know, something that just popped into my head with this conversation, another exhibit, and I don't know how you would do this. I'll have the ideas, but I'll let you, you know, have the frustration of trying to put them together. But automotive accessories. I ran across, unrelated to this, but this would be an exhibit that would probably intrigue people. I found they had the Chrysler in DeSoto had the Highway Hi-Fi. It was an actual in-dash phonograph player.
Yes.
In the 1950s. And I just recently discovered an accessory you could get for your DeSoto in the 1940s that was installed in the center of your steering wheel, was a pop-up cigarette. You push a button and a lit cigarette would pop up in the center of your steering wheel.
A lit cigarette?
Yes, and it had a built-in cigarette lighter. You loaded it with cigarettes. You push the button, it would light it, and it would pop up. And I guess you could put your face right into the steering wheel for your cigarette. Yeah, what can possibly go wrong?
That's disturbingly dangerous, but yeah, it's fascinating. If that's, you know, again, I'll tell you, it's funny. You brought up the phonograph thing. The first time I ever heard about that was literally the day that we met face to face, when I came to Needles for that information expo. And we, you and your group, Mike Ward and all those people that were there, graciously invited me to come hang out with them. And we were sitting around a table and somebody brought that up. And I I had never heard of that in my life. And it was the most fascinating. I immediately went back to my hotel and started looking it up. And I would love to do an exhibit of that type of thing. I think people would find that absolutely fascinating. So that is something in all my spare time. We'll see if I can put that together before the 26th show.
Well, not if you don't have the accessories themselves, just advertisements for those accessories.
Right. Yeah, that would be great.
Would be interesting because there is so many things over the years that one of and going off topic a tad bit, the McFarland automobile in 1918, 1919 was just an incredible, luxurious automobile, ridiculously expensive. The car had a heated steering wheel in 1918, 19. It had no windows and it didn't have brakes, but it had a heated steering wheel.
Well, you may get frostbite, but at least your hands are warm. So
when we die in a collision, at least our hands are warm.
Right. Yes. It is fascinating, though, to look at that. One of the things that I incorporated into each one of the decade exhibits on the panels on either side of the exits as you are, walking out of that decade toward the next one, is I have these 4 panels, and one of them is what I would consider kind of pop culture. It's what was going on during that decade in the areas of literature, music, film, TV, if there was TV during that time period. Another one is technology, what was going on in the world of technology during that time period. And one of them is based on automotive things, and the other is science and technology. But in those automotive ones, I was able to kind of cover a lot of these things. And so many of them, the heated steering wheel thing is a perfect example. These advancements that, we look at, like the car that I own now is the first car that I've ever owned that had a heated steering wheel, right? And I mean, and I got that, I don't know, 4 years ago, which means that, from the age of 16, which we won't even get into when that was for me, up until 4 years ago, I never drove a car with a heated steering wheel. When I got it, I looked at that as like, wow, this is fancy. And yet, over 100 years ago, this was something that existed. And so I do think it's fascinating how these developments occur, and then they come and go, like they're around for a while, and then people are like, yeah, we probably don't need that. And then, 60 years later, somebody brings it back up and they're a genius for inventing this amazing modern development. So it is fascinating.
Well, that's I'm glad that you're reminiscing about some of your older vehicles. I have a confession. The first about 30 years that my wife and I were married, I never owned a pickup truck that was manufactured after I was born. So yes, old timers. Hey, Wade, God bless. I look forward to seeing you in Tulsa. I look forward to conversations about 26. I'm excited about being, and I'm honored to be a part of Road Fest, to be honest. And I hope to see some folks there. This is quite an event, and if you need an excuse for a road trip, this is it. And you can enhance that because there are so many things in Tulsa along Route 66, and Mary Beth Babcock's is a good place to start. Her place is downtown there.
It sure is. I am an unabashed fan of my hometown. I love Tulsa, and there's so much to do there. If you want to come there and see Route 66 things, you can spend a weekend doing that. But we've got the Woody Guthrie Center there is a fantastic place to go and spend a couple of hours. The Bob Dylan Museum there is amazing. There's just a ton of stuff. The Car Museum in Sapulpa. If you don't get, if 250 cars at our event isn't enough for you, you can go there and see some incredible stuff. And there's just a lot of, again, Mother Road Market. There's all kinds of things along the route. Decapolis, William Franklin's shop there that's right across the street from Mary Beth's. William was instrumental in doing some concept drawings with me back when we were very first starting this thing. And he's got an amazing shop there that his Decapolis, his shop, and Buck Adams, Mary Beth's shop are such perfect examples of the kind of shops that made the route what it was. And these individually owned, these owners with vision and super creative people that have just fun stuff to go and see. And you're not going to see it again down the road. There's only one, and I love that about them. And Tulsa is full of that stuff. So I really do, Road Fest aside, even if you can't make it for that particular weekend, I'm always a big advocate of saying, come to Tulsa and check it out. There's tons of great stuff to do. And, I could live anywhere, but I always seem to come back home. So
very good. Well, Wade, thank you for taking time today. I really appreciate this, and I think we might have inspired a road trip or two.
I hope so.
I will let you get back to your time machine and step back to the 1500s.
I'm going to step out of this door into 1569 and start ringing a giant bell and telling everybody what the news is. So,
very good, Wade. Hey, thank you very much, and I'll see you in about a month.
Sounds great. Thanks again for having me on. I always appreciate talking to you on and off air. So we'll see you soon.
Take care, Wade. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Guys, that is a little bit of road trip inspiration there for you, I tell you. And I hope to see you there. If I don't see you at Road Fest, I hope to see you on the road and in between. Don't have a clue what I'll be driving, but I'll keep you posted on that. Hey, next week, we're going to take a trip. Well, we're going to be talking to Bianca and Encinias, and we'll be talking about the South Valley of Albuquerque along the old alignment of Route 66 there, and what the South Valley Main Street group is involved with. And I think you're going to like this because Albuquerque is a pretty dynamic city, and Route 66 enthusiasts know it well, but it gets overlooked a lot. The old alignment, the pre-1937 alignment that ran north and south through the city. So this is going to be a lot of fun. And, we got other stuff coming up on June 8th. We'll talk to Chris Norloff. He is reviving the S&H Green Stamp brand, sort of like what Stephanie Stuckey's doing is for Stuckey's. And then on the 15th, we'll be talking to Chris Hill. He's involved with the Musical Highway program. That should be kind of interesting. The 21st, I'll be in Tulsa. I do not know if we'll have a podcast or not. Last year, that idea went down in flames. Let's see if we can pull that off this year. If you want to take the stress and worry and the planning out of a Route 66 trip, and you want the very best of the Route 66 experience, I have a couple suggestions for you. Route Trip USA is tremendous. They really hire consultants such as myself. They travel the road themselves, and they're intimate knowledge of this, and they will create a bespoke trip for you. But not just Route 66. They also do Canadian adventures and road trip adventures in general. And another one that I can highly recommend is Gilligan's Route 66 Tours. Don't let the name fool you. You can either join a self-drive convoy type tour, or they have created, working with the developers of the Route 66 navigation app, they have taken their intimate knowledge of Route 66, the people, the culture. They've worked with the developer of the Route 66 navigation app to create a self-drive tour for couples or individuals that it's like having a guide in the car with you. Highly, highly can recommend both of those. And of course, my good friend, Austin Coop, Two Lane America. He does a fantastic job with Route 66 tours, but he's also got some others. He does great tours of the automotive museums in southern Michigan, northern Indiana, and he's got one of fall tours, color tours in New England, and give you a taste of America, and a Southwest tour. So those are all ideas if you get out there. And to really have the immersion into the Route 66 experience, you can't let the adventure end at the end of the day. And that's why I recommend the Roadrunner Lodge, the Cactus Inn Motel in McLean, Texas, and of course, the Wagon Wheel Motel in Cuba, Missouri. Hey, if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the program, drop me a note And I want to give a shout out too to our sponsors, our supporters of our Patreon page. That's really a blessing. It helps us a lot on some of these things, the educational programs we develop, attendance of things like the Governor's Conference in Albuquerque. It's a community and it's a shared adventure. That's what Jim Hinckley's all about. Telling people where to go, sharing America's story, inspiring road trips. Hey, do we have any questions before we kick off here? I sure don't want to beat my gums too long and wear out my welcome. I'm glad and thankful that everybody joined us today. And if you've got any questions, chime in. And we'll do this again next week, same time. And meanwhile, check out JimHinckley'sAmerica.com. When we post this later today, I will have information about Roadfest, the website, the dates, all in the posting. This will be published here on Podbean as well as Spotify and other platforms. Appreciate it if you'd share it with your friends. And check out our YouTube channel. We kind of let that languish, but we're building quite a library of shared adventures. And when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we can start doing some live video programs. A little added incentive. Even though I have a face for radio, it might be kind of fun. Well, until we meet again, my friends, I will bid you adios. And, well, thank you for joining us this morning. I hope you found it inspirational and entertaining. And invite your friends. Join us here next week. Until we meet again, my friends, adios.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Hey, if you're going to make it to Tulsa, drop me a note through our Facebook page, Jim Hinckley's America, or on the website. And, well, maybe we can get together for a cup of coffee.